And now we'll get to some examples. So what I see here is a diagonal trying to connect both to, the square stones. But this diagonal connection, as we said, is breakable. If white is thick on both sides, we can see when white pokes here in the middle, now black has two choices and both of them lead to getting disconnected. And if they get disconnected, clearly they're dead. There's two eyes here, but they're not connected. So here's a good example of how white can break the diagonal connection. This is going to happen quite often in your games where, white might have some thickness on both sides and you're in a lot of trouble. This happens again in the next example with the one jump. So we see that there's a one jump, but white again is thick on both sides. Like if white was attacking this group and black was running away, this black group would be in trouble because once we poke through, no matter which way black attacks or tries to connect to its group, there's two cutting points. And so no matter what, you can see white would be able to cut apart black here. And so this is very devastating. So here's some examples of when the diagonal and the one jump doesn't work. Next, we can take a look at when the one jump is good. So I don't want you to think the one jump is always bad. We're just showing that they can be cut apart. But in this case, excuse me, white can't really make a base. And so it's better to jump out and get a speedy exit compared to trying to bunker down. So these one jumps are really good. And black is only thick on one side, not thick on the other. So once black tries to cut here, we can use this stone as a sacrifice. If we play A, which looks like the more common move to find, if black cuts, which black can, we can now use these sacrifice stones as a manipulation against these. So we Atari black, we push forward, which hurts this stone. And if black was to play something over here, then white can descend down and kill these two stones. So black has to come back and fix. And so now white gets this nice bump here. And so almost white's groups is fully connected, just about, and black stone is neutralized. When we look at the whole board, white got a very nice thickness that's going to affect the rest of the board. And black is very small on the left side here. Well, actually, it's not very small, but white still kind of got to settle in a bad area. But this group is pretty big for black. I'm not going to say it isn't. Still, though, this is really nice for white because white was in trouble here and at the start, right? This looks like a lot of trouble. So this is a good example of how to use your one jump. The other variation is this way. We see black cuts now, and then white makes shape. This is the table shape. We talked about this in the other class. So now when black Ataris to save its stone, white can use its sacrifice to manipulate this. White can use what looks like supposedly a sacrifice, but actually gets to kill these two black stones. And at the end of it, we can judge that once again, black got a good push in the corner, but white got ultimate thickness. This thickness is extremely powerful and is going to help white for the rest of the game on the outside. So in both cases, we've kind of had to use a sacrifice, but it allows us to manipulate our opponents for us to get good shape. So that's what the one jump is used for. This is a very common shape where we have a 3-space extension, one low, one high. It's a good balance to have both low and high stones. The weakness with the extra long knight is usually here, but honestly, black could play in any one of these cases. This one is just the most easiest and common. So we'll see white now attaches on top. Black pushes to break the tiger's mouth and then comes back to threaten to cut this knight's move. Excuse me, I'm just going to sip of tea. White fixes, black connects to its group, and then white doesn't sweat this stone. It doesn't worry about it. It just plays over here. So now when we look, Black did undercut white. White originally had some, saying like influence or potential here, and black took it away. But white ended up getting, once again, ultimate thickness. We see how these shapes, even though they're loosely connected, they continuously give thickness if black tries to cut or invade them. And that's important to understand. Depending on how the board looks, this could be really good for white, or it could be very good for black, or it could be neutral. Like it could be good for both players. I know most players at the double digit Q level would feel bad that they got undercut here, right? And they lost their territory because they always assume that once they make a base or something, like an outpost, that it's going to become their territory. But that's not how you have to think and go, right? Lots of things can be undercut. But if you keep connected and strong, you'll end up taking out another advantage, which is thickness. And this thickness can be used for the rest of the board. Like this would be great if white had another stone here. And it would be bad if black had like a strong position here, right? Because this thickness isn't doing much. So it all depends on the situation of the board. But understanding this connection and how it works and how you can use it to your advantage is very, very important, because I think most players would think this is bad for white, but it's actually very good, once again, depending on the board. All right. So I've seen these counter pincers a lot in double digit Q games. It's actually very bad for black to do this. And we're going to discuss now more about the diagonal and the one jump. So it should be white's turn now, which it is. And so we're going to use the diagonal to cut connections. Understanding that the diagonal cuts your stones is very important. Now, how does this work, right? So let's see how it won't work if white jumps. So it's using a one jump instead of the diagonal. Black would be able to touch under. White tries to hane it to break this connection, but then black gets the cut. White will Atari, black Ataris, white fixes, black pushes through. White does get to cut these two stones off, but now because of this Romeo Juliet split and this Atari, you can see that in this Atari, we can see that black got, once again, ultimate thickness, right? It got a really strong position and is pretty open for territory, and everything's fairly connected. So this is considered a very good position for black. White had to play in gote too, so black gets sente. And this all stems because white chose to use a one jump, but one jumps do not disconnect your opponent. So instead, we want to use the A, because now if we tried the same thing, white will hane, get cut, but then Atari, and we can see no matter which way black Ataris, white's going to be able to connect and kill the stone. And so these two groups both get disconnected. So in this case, because we have something to attack, this is a very good idea to use the diagonal. Now, let's look at another instance where we're giving a similar option, but instead of us attacking, now we're in trouble. We're in big trouble. We're like surrounded by two strong white groups. So instead of playing a slow move like the diagonal, white becomes very thick here, very, very thick here, and black gets bad shape. This is the iron pillar versus the diagonal. This is what we discuss a lot in our reviews. But now I get to show you why it's bad, right? And it's very simple. It's not like black's going to die here. You know, black's probably going to be able to make shape and get out. But white is becoming so thick, and black is a little flimsy. So it's going to take extra moves to fix itself. So white is becoming thick and making lots of profit, generally on both sides, while attacking black. And black is making no profit using slow moves like the diagonal. So in this case, this would be the improper time to use a diagonal. So now we're going to look at if black one jumps, right? And in this case, this is actually the much better move. Yes, white can connect again or start messing with you, But once again, we'll use our sacrifice to get a better position on the outside. So the one jump can be cut, but it is jumping out to the center much faster, and it will lead to more influential positions if white was to, let's say, try and cut through. Because in every example we've done, whenever they cut these positions, these shapes, black always can manipulate white into, taking the sacrifice and then black getting a good position. So I hope this makes sense so far, when we should use speed more than slow moves, or when we should use the diagonal, right? When we're attacking, trying to keep our opponent split.